Um, so good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Saturday morning's group coaching. For those of you who don't know me, I think I know all of you, but just in case you're not sure who I am, I'm Margaret, one of the productivity coaches here at Keller Williams Avenues. So I always like to start my meetings off with tell me something good. And it's been a long time since I've been with you guys. So tell me what's good happening in your world.
We woke up this morning.
Yes, we did. That's a good one, right? That's a good one. What else?
I don't know if it's good or bad, but I started working again.
Yeah, mixed feelings on that one.
Yeah.
But that's probably why you're here on the dual career coaching on Saturday morning. So I completely understand that. So just a couple of things. Last week we had our home buying information night that I do 3 times a year for your clients. We did have a few people come. I know some of you showed up just to learn. So for those of you that were there to learn, what did you learn by being there?
Can you guys see
then.
me? Am I on the camera?
You are on the camera.
All right. I thought somebody was knocking at my door. Sorry.
It looks like you're like in a great big huge forest because there's all kinds of green stuff behind you.
Oh, that's okay. As long as you can see my face, we're good.
Yes, we can. Okay. So we are all here. First of all, I want to make sure this crew especially is aware of what we have added to the calendar. We now have a 4th coaching group that is more aligned with what we do on Monday and Tuesday mornings, as far as more of a coaching focus versus a training focus. So on Monday evenings at 6 o'clock, we have added another group coaching, and it's really designed for this crew right here, right? Those of you that cannot make it to Monday at 10 o'clock, right? You guys are all working, right?
Yes.
Right? So this way you can have time. I know some of you try and dial in and you multitask while you're at your other job. And the reality is that's not very effective, is it?
No.
So we decided as coaches, we are adding another hour of coaching to our calendars so that we can help you guys get these careers launched. Okay. So hopefully you guys will all join. I think a couple of you joined last week, Monday on the first one. And I know from the coach, I heard it was pretty amazing. Any feedback? And if it's bad, tell me offline.
No, I attended it and I did enjoy it. It was good to get some of the information that's given during the day that I generally miss most times, unless I go back and have time to go back and watch one of the videos. So I do appreciate it. Yes. And it's always better to be live, right? So we're actually doing them live from the Old Town office. Although this week I can't teach and Corey's in Texas, so she's going to Zoom in. So next Monday's all on Zoom, in case any of you were thinking about going to Old Town.
It was me gonna go. It was me gonna go, so I just got to Zoom in Monday at 6.
Yep, just Zoom in Monday at 6. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then thanks for telling me, because if not, I'd have been there.
Yeah, Corey and I talked about that yesterday. She's like, well, if you can't teach it, then we're going to have to Zoom it. And I'm like, that's fine. Go with us during the speed bumps, because whenever we start something new, there's always juggling of calendars and getting things figured out, right? So, all right. How many of you have a fear of any level of getting your first buyer or first client under contract and having no idea what to do?
Me.
Thank you. For those of you that didn't raise your hand, you're liars. Okay, now Nikki's saying, no, I've done it, and she has. So she's going to help me with this today, because, I always tell people the easy part is getting the contract accepted, right? And a couple of Mondays ago, probably a month ago now, I did a whole session on, I have a buyer who said yes to me. What do we do? Right? I mean, there's a whole gap in between from the time the buyer or the seller says yes till the time you go under contract with the client on the other side. We'll do that another day. I really want to focus on when you're under contract. What does that mean? Okay. And we've got contracts classes coming and all kinds of things to help you. But it's scary, right? Elizabeth, up until last night, was under contract to buy her own property.
Oh, cool.
It was cool until the seller didn't play ball when it came to inspections and we wrote a termination last night. So, and it's still cool because we're learning a lot. However, pretty scary, Elizabeth, right? When you're having to figure out what to do next and you have no idea whether
Yeah.
you were the client or not.
It was really overwhelming.
It's really overwhelming. And so fortunately, I already had this on the calendar. So today I want to dive into that. And then I'm also going to give you guys some tricks, some tips, and a template to be able to use. But I want to take a temperature check. How many of you are currently CTME users? I know 2 of you are, 3 of you are. Okay. Of the 3 of you that are, do you already have date templates in your CTM build? I see a yes and a no and a no. Okay, then we're going to do it. All right. Because if not everybody had CTM or you already had your templates, we weren't going to go quite to that level. So, all right. I am going to share my screen. Oops, hold on. I got to move the black bar. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Communication with your client is the #1 thing as an agent you can do. So the minute they go under contract, what are you telling them? Because here's the deal. They can't read the contract, right? They don't understand what you just had them sign. Granted, you went over it, but it doesn't mean that they understand every line item. And most of them don't understand what the dates and deadlines mean, and they don't know how to execute against them. And how do I know that? Because I've worked with a lot of them myself, and my daughter is a transaction coordinator, and she gets a lot of questions from your clients because they don't know who to ask, so they go to her. Okay? So make sure you have a communication path that sets your clients up for success as you're going through the process. So what we do in our business is the minute a client goes under contract, we have built out a communication email that basically says, congratulations, you're under contract, whether they're the buyer or the seller. And it goes through what happens next. That is my favorite sentence. That's my favorite communication. That's my favorite ending of every email when I'm in their contract is what's next. Okay. For those of you that have recently got deals under contract, you're probably getting emails from me or Corey saying, congratulations, you're under contract with a new buyer. And oh, by the way, here's probably where you are in the contract. Here's what you should be looking for. And here's probably what's going to happen next. Did you see those, Elizabeth? Yeah, right. And they're helpful, right? I always chuckle because people respond to them and I'm like, I didn't write it. It's a smart plan, but right. It's a way for us to help you, and you need to do the same with your client. So when I first get a buyer under contract, I'm telling them, here's the top 3 things you need to do in the next 10 days. And then a week later, I'll send an email. Here's where we are. Here's what we still need to accomplish. And here's what's coming next. Here's what's coming next. Here's what's coming next. Right? But here's the deal. You don't know how to write that today, do you?
No.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through the contract. To me, the communication and what happens after you go under contract until you get to the closing table is 100% driven by one section in the contract to buy and sell. Does anybody want to guess what it is? And you're on mute, Nikki. I know you're answering me.
The inspection.
Nope. Dates and deadlines.
Oh, well, yeah, that too.
The dates and deadlines drive everything in a contract from the day the buyer and seller both sign it all the way until the closing table. Okay. So know your contract, but we're not gonna do a contract class today. So if I look at the dates section of the contract to buy and sell, it looks like this. And these are gonna be all filled in with dates. If I quickly put in dates on here, which I could do. And we're closed 10/17 and let's just do it, see what it looks like. Okay, so I got dates. I just went under contract. Woohoo! We're celebrating. Okay, so what are my very first dates? The very first dates for a buyer are going to be the delivery of the earnest money. It's going to be the receipt of the seller's property disclosure and potentially the lead-based paint disclosure. It's going to be the completion of their loan application with their lender. And it's going to be getting the inspection scheduled and starting to talk to the party who's going to cover their homeowner's insurance. So that's a lot. The first 10 days of the contract for a buyer are completely wrapped up in those tasks, right? So earnest money, depending on how you wrote the contract, how they get the money to the title company. It's usually a title company unless you're dealing with RE/MAX. And then oftentimes the RE/MAX offices will hold the earnest money. So you got to look in the MLS to see who's the holder of the earnest money. The buyer needs to get it to them, and they either can get it to them in the form of a personal check, which means they can go drop it off. They can get it to them through a cashier's check that they could drop off, or if they're doing a wire transfer. If they're doing wire transfers, the buyer needs to contact the title company to get the wiring instructions. Do not, I repeat, do not ever be the person who gives out wire transfer instructions. And I'm going to tell you why. One, true story, I was a new agent, probably the dumbest mistake I made in my career. I got the title companies confused on two contracts. I sent buyer A the wiring instruction for the title company on buyer B. Oops. Had to create a complete, had to amend the deadlines, had to figure out how to get the money back from title company B and how to get it to title company A. The buyer ended up incurring additional costs. Who do you think paid those costs?
You.
I sure did. Okay, talk about a dumb move. In today's environment with so much wire fraud, just don't do it for that reason. Back in 2015, 2016, that was not as a big prevalent, and we were giving the wiring instructions. And I'll never do it again. Now for two reasons, but for the first reason, to let alone. So as soon as you go under contract, you want to find out from the listing agent who's the closer. Right? What title location company are they using? So let's say they're using land title. Maybe they're using the land title office down in Highlands Ranch, because that's where the seller loves that title person, right? Okay, that's fine. They don't have to drop it off at that office. If the property is up here in Arvada, Westminster, they could drop it off at any land title office. But you want to make sure you know what the name of the title company is, who's the closer, who's the rep, and then where's the closest location. What I tell my buyers to do when they drop off earnest money in person is to always get a receipt, and they will, and to take with them the address of the property they're purchasing as well as the name of the seller, because that gives the title company information to be able to sync it up when they're getting all this data coming in at them. Okay? Questions on earnest money?
I have
Okay.
a question.
Yep,
Hey.
go ahead.
So right after you terminate, how long does it usually take to get the money back?
Depends on the title company. You're going to send that earnest money release to the title company. I would have Andy send it this weekend. And then Monday, just call him and ask him when you can pick it up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good question. All right, Mr. Buyer, You're going to, you as the buyer's agent, or if you're using a transaction coordinator, they will do it for you. But you and your team are responsible to get a copy of the completed contract to buy and sell, signed by, or the counter offer that's signed by buyer, seller, and both agents. That needs to get to the lender, because that is the final step to the loan application process, is the completion of the contract to buy and sell. So you need to, as soon as you go under contract, get that information to the lender, because that's going to be the trigger for them to start the lending process. Okay. That one's the easy one, right? I'm going to tell my buyer, we've already sent the contract and the counter offer, or just the contract, whichever is applicable, to your lender named Joe Smith. Joe and his team will be reaching out to you, verifying some information and getting some balls rolling. Please make sure you respond to your lender immediately. It's pretty much the communication there. The next most important thing we need to do as a buyer's agent is get those inspections scheduled. You want to know 2 to 3 inspection companies to give your clients options. So you want to, as if you guys are in the process now where you're like, oh, well, I don't have any buyers, but I don't have any inspectors either. Start asking the other agents in the office. Start reading the office Facebook page. Pick up the phone and call some of those inspectors out there. If you're able to come to Coffee Talk or Team Rally or watch the recordings of those, you're going to see and hear inspectors who come to the office. Find some people you feel comfortable with. For those of you that work with a bilingual community, you may want to find a bilingual inspector. Okay. The people I work with typically don't have that need. So if you asked me who a good one is, I have no idea. But I guarantee you Alexia does. And if I had a client who wanted that or needed that, Alexia would be the first person I'd call and say, who's your bilingual inspector? Right? So have those options where you need them based on the type of people who your community is that you're working with in your clientele. Fair enough?
Yes.
I never tell my buyers who to use as an inspection company. I also don't tell them what inspections to get. I strongly encourage them to definitely get the home inspected. Even new builds, I do home inspections. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But you want at least a good general third-party home inspection. They're going to look at the roof. They're going to test all the appliances. They're going to run the water. They're going to check the HVAC. You want that good general home inspection. I strongly encourage a septic, a sewer line scope. Can anyone see what's happening in a sewer line? No. Does anyone know how expensive it is to fix a sewer line?
Okay.
Can be pricey, right? So I always encourage them, right? The inspectors I use bundle services. So if they get a regular inspection plus a sewer scope and a radon scope, they get a discount on the package. Okay. Always a sewer scope. Now, if you're on a 3rd level condo, probably going to think differently. Okay. The other one that I tell them is very prevalent in our world right now is radon inspections. Have the property test for radon. Okay. Now, when might you not do that? If they're buying a penthouse down in Brooks Towers and they're on the 16th floor, they may not need one there, right? However, if you're buying a house with a basement or a crawl space, yeah, you probably do. What I tell my buyers is these are the ones I recommend. You decide. Some inspectors will take it a step farther. They offer mold tests. They offer asbestos tests. They offer, some of them do termite inspections. Like you can inspect until the cows come home, right? But I talk to them about what the prevalent 3 are. Then I give them the name of my 3 inspection companies that I know and trust and have had good experiences with and have been good with my clients. When you're looking for an inspector, you want someone who is not going to be an alarmist. Okay, you don't want the Chicken Little inspector. You want the ones that are solid. If you're working with a first-time home buyer, pick up the phone to the inspector that they choose. I've done this many times. And tell them, hey, I just wanted to let you know the Joneses, they're first-time home buyers and they're really, really nervous. So one, they're probably going to have a lot of questions, but if you could make sure that you explain things super well so they don't get freaked out. Most of the inspectors hear the words, don't overemphasize things unless it's really bad. I also don't want them to not tell us about things, right? Like if there's definitely something wrong, we want to talk about it, but let's not send, fireworks up in the air that the sky is falling. I have had deals terminate because of alarmist inspectors. So make sure yours aren't. I will offer to schedule it for the buyer. I give them the choice. I'll say, here's the phone numbers. You can call them. Just let me know when it's going to be there. I will be there as well. Or they will say, they'll tell my TC, Andy, just pick one. Or whichever one's available, Andy, and here's what we want. Okay. So just talk to your client, find out how you can help them, service them, get that done. The last thing that I want the buyers to start on right away is to arrange for their homeowner's insurance. Okay, you've got that property insurance deadline. Let's get it done. One of the things that we're seeing, David talked about it recently at a team rally, and I actually had it happen to my buyer the very next day. Homeowners insurance, it used to be, Jeff, you can probably remember these days, you'd call up your insurance guy, and I would say, Terry, guess what? I just bought a new house yesterday. And he'd go, great, what's the address? Tell me about it, XYZ. Okay, your premium's going to be this much, you're good. Remember those days? Right? Today, if I call Terry at State Farm and I say that, he's going to say, okay, well, give me the address, give me the deets. Okay, well now, wow, man, cameras moved all over the place. Give me the deets. Okay, well, we'll get back to you in 2 to 3 weeks. Because insurance companies are pumping the brakes on taking on additional properties. And it's because of just the great amount of losses as a country, not just a state, that we have had with all of the natural disasters. So make sure your people are getting moving quickly. Okay. Questions so far when you're the buyer's agent and it's today's the day you went under contract, all the things you need to get done in the next 24 hours. I couldn't tell if Jeff was moving to take his computer off mute or just moving. So, okay.
No, I just write a note.
Okay. Awesome. You guys do not have to be on mute. I would rather have you have the ability to interact with me because it's just easier that way. Unless you're in an area that there's a lot of racket and noise. So, all right. Chris DePerio. I am so confused by what I see behind you.
What do you see behind me?
You.
Whoa.
That, yes.
Well, apparently the webcam is acting up.
I'm just like going, it is so funny because you move just right and there you are again.
That is really weird. I'm gonna have to try and fix that.
Anyway, I was just like, I didn't know if you noticed it, but I was just like going, okay, Chris is like looking up like maybe I'm on a big screen TV, but then every time he moves, I see another Chris that's looking straight at me. And I was just like, okay, I'm confused.
No, I did
I
not
thought it was
notice that.
intentional.
That must have been for one of the classes I was taking one day.
Yeah, you've definitely got the virtual background going. Anyway, it was pretty funny. All right, so that's the buyer side, you guys. Is that a lot?
Not too bad.
Not too bad. All right. It can feel like a lot, right? It's a lot, but guess what? Once you get through that on the buy side, you're pretty much coasting, right? It's not like you're going to get to put your feet up. However, you're going to be able to do that. So now let's go to the seller side. On the seller, we just went under contract. Okay, so this hopefully is my tomorrow. Okay, I have learned, you guys, if you want to just get stuff under contract, just leave town. But I kid you not, I had 2 listings when I was on vacation in Las Vegas. They both went under contract while I was on vacation in Las Vegas. I was negotiating actually one day from the blackjack table. Then this last 2 days, I was up at the Rocky Mountain Summit for Keller Williams, and literally my listing, we got an offer and we'll probably be under contract tonight or early tomorrow morning. So if you want business, just leave. That's all I got to tell you. Okay. I'm the seller. We accepted an offer, or they accepted our counter offer. What do I have to do? First, I need to send and create the title order through whatever title company I'm using, and I need to send them the copy of the contract and or counteroffer. And counteroffer if it applies, not an or. Okay? That is going to be the trigger for the title company to start their job of doing the title research and going to work. The second thing is, yes, ma'am.
Do we pay, like, okay, so we're going to send them the paperwork to the title company. Do they just start working? Do we have to pay something up front to get them to start working, or how does that work?
They are in it with us. They don't get paid till closing, just like we don't.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the only exception to that would be if it's an HOA that has a very expensive fee to get the CIC docs, they may have the buyer pay that up front.
Okay.
Okay. So that leads right into my next section. If you have a property that has an HOA on it or multiple HOAs, one of the requirements of the contracts is that the seller needs to deliver the HOA documents to the buyer. There are a couple of different ways you can do that. You can have the seller go get them from the HOA, or they go out to their homeowners link and they attempt to go download them all. And then they can PDF copy them to you and you can send them to the buyer's agent. One, for those of you who know me, I'm lazy. I don't want to touch things that many times. And second of all, what if the buyer misses a critical document? Could come back to be a problem in the future. I know Land Title does it, and I believe most other title companies do, is they have a service for a nominal fee plus the cost of whatever the HOA charges. They will get those documents on the behalf of the seller and then send them to the buyer and the buyer's agent. I always encourage my sellers to do it. It's actually part of the conversation I have at the time of listing. Do you want to do it this way or do you want to do it this way? And they always seem to pick the title company one because I'm probably really good at making that easy and making the other way sound really scary. So if you have a property that has an HOA, you also want to communicate with the title company if they're going to order the CIC docs or if the seller's going to take care of it. Okay, so ordering title work is number one. Number two is getting the disclosures that your seller signed prior to going on the market. Seller's property disclosure, source of water, square footage disclosure, lead-based paint disclosure, closing instructions, all of those things. You take those documents, you get them, add the buyer's names to them, you send them to the buyer's agent so that the buyer can get them and sign them. Okay, so as the listing agent, when you first go under contract, you only have 3 jobs. Get the contract to the title company, order CIC docs, and get the disclosures to the buyer. And when I say you, that can be your TC if you're using one. Okay. Both Elizabeth and Nikki are going, thank God I have one because that sounds painful. Okay. Questions? Okay. It's a lot. All right. What else is in this contract to buy and sell? I think the big thing is that as things now start clicking, right? You're past day one and you're monitoring your dates and deadlines, right? Make sure you know when things are due by. If I'm the buyer's agent in this dates that I have up on September 25th, on or before, my client and I should have received a copy of the preliminary title work. When that comes in, you, the buyer's agent, review the title work, but you're not a title expert, right? What I do is I'm looking for what's on Schedule B1 that has to be done for closing that may be something my buyer needs to do now. The most common thing in that area that's going to be something the buyer has to do is I have clients, I'm not going to use their real names, but it's going to be pretty close. I have some clients, their last name is Lisa and Bill Smith. Do you know how many Lisa and Bill Smiths they are in the world? Do you think they all have immaculate credit? I can tell you they don't, because every time Lisa and Bill Smith buy or sell a property, the title company comes up with about 17 IRS judgments and past due tax liens in the name of some Lisa and Bill Smith somewhere in the world that they are picking up in their title search. So Lisa and or Bill or both need to call the title company to give them additional identifying information so that the title company knows it's not them. So that's what I'm looking for on the buy side. If I'm on the sell side, I'm looking same thing. What are some things that are out of context? I am not going to teach title commitments today. Andrea Kwame from Land Title does a great class on it, and she's going to teach you how to read the title commitment. If you have questions, pick up the phone and call the title company. That's their job. What I tell my buyers, if there's nothing on B1 that concerns me, I always tell them, make sure you look on Schedule B2 to the things the title company is not going to insure you for. If there are questions you don't understand, I am not a title expert, Mr. Buyer. Here's the name and phone number of the escrow officer who can answer your questions. Now, I will glance at it to see if there's anything weird. And you guys, I have seen railroad right-of-ways signed by President Taft, signed by Ulysses S. Grant. Like, those things are so cool to find in title work if you're any kind of a history buff at all. It's just kind of cool. But they'll have in there like mineral rights and things like that, or right-of-way access for utility companies or different things that the HOAs may have filed. And if there's things in there that they're not comfortable with, then they need to inquire about it and get out of the contract. But they have to do it. They have to file the objection prior to the objection deadline in the contract. So the minute that title company sends that information out, make sure your buyers are looking at it. Sellers, you don't really have to worry about anything in the title commitment other than if there's an action item for your seller to do prior to closing. If you've got a property with solar, you got your work cut out of you making sure that you get the UCC filing off the house for the solar so it can be transferred to the new buyer. Questions? HOA docs, same thing. The HOA docs need to be delivered to the buyer on or before 9/26. If I'm the buyer's agent, I'm going to make sure that my client saw them, tell them to review them, and that we've got until October 2nd to terminate if there's anything in there they can't live with. And yes, I have had clients terminate over HOA docs. The funny one that we tell the story to always give to your client is, let's say that the HOA has a restriction on dogs and they can't be more than 60 pounds and you adopted a St. Bernard puppy. You're probably not going to do well there with when your St. Bernard puppy grows up. A real life one is when we got the HOA docs, we learned that the HOA was being sued by the insurance company. Needless to say, that was a lot of risk to the buyer, right? To buy a property like that. So we terminated. So they are important. I always tell my clients, read the minutes. True story. We were reading the minutes on a condo in Golden and found discussions in the notes of the minutes. And this condo association did meet every month and they actually gave us all the minutes. And we discovered conversations in there about the need to replace the roofs on the siding of all of the buildings in the complex, and they didn't have sufficient insurance coverage to be able to do that. And how were they going to cover the special assessment to the future homeowners? And in the minutes, we found out that that meeting was happening tomorrow. True story. We'd already gotten the status letter from the HOA saying there were no special assessments. Well, that was true. They hadn't voted on it. So we pushed out, because the selling agent screwed it up, we pushed out the HOA termination deadline to pass the vote. Then we called the HOA, found out the vote had fulfilled, and there was going to be a $14,000 assessment charged after the buyer closed. Well, because we knew that, and because I properly filled out the contract, guess who paid the $14,000 at closing? I heard ya.
The seller?
The seller, right? But had we not read those minutes, the seller ultimately would have been responsible for it. But by the time we would have gotten the notification, the buyer would have already been in the house for 90 days. Anybody want to go fight with the seller 90 days after closing that they owe you $14,000? I don't. Right? So it's really important that we read those. And you guys, these stories that I'm giving you are true. These are my stories. Like, this has happened in my career. Use these as you're talking to your own clients. I don't care, right? Use them as examples because they're real. Fair enough?
Yes.
I
Okay.
do have one question.
Okay.
What would cause an insurance company to sue an HOA?
Oh, that was fun. Actually, there is a lot of litigation between HOAs and insurance companies. This particular one, they were in a dispute about how much the insurance coverage should be. The insurance company paid the HOA the money that they agreed on initially. And then later, the insurance company found out that one of the appraisers or assessors or the people that go out and determine it actually had a conflict of interest within the HOA. And the insurance company claimed that he inflated the amount of the estimates because of his relationship with the HOA. So then they used that as their reason why the HOA got overpaid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
Thank
was
you.
ugly. I did hear that it finally settled, but it was in the courts for 12 years. Crazy, yeah?
That is a long time.
Yeah, well, do you know what happens when you get big companies fighting with each other in the courts? They all have lots of money for attorneys.
Oh, yeah. And they can drag it out as long as they want.
Exactly. So, all right, good questions.
Just a quick
Right,
question.
so-
About,
Go ahead. I'm not hearing you. I heard you say I have a question and then you went quiet, but your lips were still moving.
Can you hear me still now?
It's very faint. Did your mic go bad? Yeah, I got my volume up.
Now,
Oh, there you are. Yes, that's better.
hey, I know that the lender needs the HOA docs just to make sure there's no problems with it. Wouldn't the insurance company need HOA docs too? You just brought that point up as far as litigation and so forth. If you're gonna get insured, would they want to see HOA docs or
The
not?
property insurance guy? Not
Your
normally.
insurance company. Your insurance company.
Right, that's what I meant, the property insurance company.
Yeah.
I've never had them ask. Now, I also know the lenders reach out to the HOA to get the docs they need. They don't necessarily get the whole package.
Okay. Right.
That's all in their internal process, so I don't get too involved in it.
I was just curious if it comes up.
Well, now you do want to, if you're dealing with condominiums, you want to advise your buyers to make sure that they get the rider on their property insurance that covers them for special assessments. And David Fear can explain it. All I said to Terry when I bought my townhome is make sure I have that rider up to $15,000 because it's super cheap insurance. And so what it basically does is, let's say that a massive hailstorm comes through, and you know the example that I just gave, right? The deal in Golden, right? If I was a homeowner out there when the event happened that caused all the damage, and the special assessment came through, I would have coverage on my homeowner's insurance to pay the special assessment. So make sure, you know, again, one of those value adds that we bring to our buyers by having all of this knowledge. And trust me, you guys, I know you're like, going, Margaret, how am I ever going to learn all this? Time, engagement, being at coffee talk, being at team rallies, being at coaching, because between Bob and Charles and I and Kevin, we are dumping information all the time. Okay. And it's new information, right? Things are always coming up. So just stay engaged and you'll learn it, I promise. Okay. If you're the buyer's agent on the seller's property insurance disclosure, as well as the other disclosures, just know the deadline that you're supposed to receive them by. Share them with your buyers. Make sure they review them and sign them, especially the seller's property disclosure. The other thing is, I am not afraid to, when I'm the buyer's agent, I actually will print out the seller's property disclosure that we receive from the listing agent, and I take it to the home inspection. Just a great thing to have the inspector look at. As an example, a house in Wheat Ridge that we bought in 2021, they said on the property disclosure that they had replaced the entire sewer line. Well, we still had the sewer scope done. Yeah, no, they didn't. They only replaced about 4 feet of it. But the rest of it needed to be replaced, right? So by having the property disclosure, we were able to look for certain things throughout it. Lead-based paint disclosure, just make sure you need to get it to your buyer and that they're signing it on time. That's a big one. This date is the day that all the parties, seller, seller's agent, buyer, and buyer's agents need to sign that lead-based paint disclosure. So make sure that you're not late. Okay. New loan terms. This is the deadline in which your buyer has to be comfortable with the terms of their loan, the interest rate, the payment, all of those things. Let's say that we go out today, we go under contract, but by the time I lock the rate with my lender, the rate goes up 2 percentage points. All of a sudden, I might not like these new loan terms. I have time to be able to get out of the contract. I can terminate.
I have a question. Sorry.
Okay.
So for the lead-based paint disclosure, I know you have the option to not do anything or have a like how do you say, like to go in and check if there is lead, like how does that work? Like do you have like a day to see like if you choose to get one, like how would that go?
Well, on 9/20 in this example is the date you get the disclosure. Then you have a lead-based paint termination date of 2 weeks later of 10/4. So you absolutely could have the property tested for lead paint. Now on the buyer's side, if the buyer's planning to do that, they would check the box that they intend to get it done. Because remember, on the lead-based paint disclosure, there's boxes that have to be checked by both the seller and the buyer before they sign it.
Okay.
Okay. I have never yet had a buyer test for lead-based paint because all you have to do is encapsulate it, and you figure they haven't used lead-based paint since prior to 1978. And I think every house in the world has been painted somehow in that time frame. So unless the kids are going to chew on the windowsills and get down to that many layers of paint, it's probably highly unlikely. However, you've got buyers out there who are going to want to do it. I've never yet had one. Not to say I won't. Okay. Loan availability. This is the date, you guys, you want your clear to close by, or at least your conditional approval. So as buyer's agents, when it comes to the loan, honestly, I pretty much let the lenders do their job. That being said, I'm a squeaky wheel. Have we ordered the appraisal yet? How are things going? I'm checking in with that lender, especially early, at least once a week. By the way, if you're a buyer's agent, your good lender partners are telling you the updates before you ask. But when you get into that last half of the month, you're past inspection, you absolutely want to be checking in with that lender on a regular basis. Have we got the appraisal back? Have we got the appraisal back? How did the appraisal look? I cannot tell you how many times I do more listings than I do buyers. I cannot tell you how many times I am texting buyer's agents saying, your deadline for the appraisal is tomorrow and I haven't heard from an appraiser. Next thing I know, here comes the phone call from the appraiser, and the next thing I get is in the amendment to push out the dates. Don't be the obnoxious buyer's agent. Get the dang appraisals done on time. Now, there's a balance to that. Because if you're buying a house, and I'm going to use, Elizabeth, can I use your current situation? Okay, so Elizabeth and her husband went under contract to purchase a home. They did the inspection, and there were some pretty big things that they found. You want to make sure that your lender is giving you enough time before the appraiser gets out there, that if you get into an inspection where things are like, this could blow, right? This could terminate if we can't resolve this with the seller. Tell the lender to pump the brakes on the appraisal, because you don't want your client spending $750, $800 on an appraisal on a house they're going to terminate. Okay, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So always be thinking about, as a buyer's agent, how to protect your buyer's money. Now, some lenders will eat those. And if that's your lender, then don't worry. Just make sure you're in communication with your lender. That's all I'm going to ask you. So when you go to that inspection and that your buyer's going, oh my God, like, we can't see the sewer because it's so clogged, it needs to be cleaned to even know what's wrong. We've got cracks in the foundation that look like they could be bad. We don't know about the roof. We've got major drainage issues around this house. We've got blah, 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 blah. I don't know if this seller is going to be willing to play ball. We may end up walking away from this. The minute you see those things, get on the phone with your lender and say, hey, this inspection, until we know we've got it resolved with the seller, let's not do it, and let's save the buyer some money. Let's not have them spend money they don't need to. Make sense? But again, you got to be thinking ahead, always thinking ahead. Like, what if, right? Does that make sense? Questions? Okay. Whew. Is there a lot to this? How many of you guys thought you got into real estate? This was a piece of work, right? You showed pretty houses, and then you showed up at closing 30 days later, ate cookies, drank coffee, and got a big check. That's all it is, right? No, there's a lot. There is a lot, but I gotta tell you, there's no better job. I love it. Okay. Appraisal. Kind of talked about it, right? The appraisal deadline. Make sure in advance, if you're the buyer, make sure you're following up with the lender. Hey, appraisal deadline is the 4th. Today's the 29th of September. Do we have that ordered? Do we know when the appraiser is going out? Like, you're not being a pain in the butt, but you're being a partner to the lender, because sometimes your lender doesn't know that his people didn't order it. Or you might get the news that they failed to tell you, hey, I didn't tell you. We waived the appraisal. Nope, you didn't tell me. That would have been good to know. Let me text the listing agent, let them know. Okay. If I'm the listing agent, I do want to know when the appraisal deadline is. And if I haven't heard from the appraiser, usually when I'm negotiating inspection resolutions, I will say to the buyer's agent, hey, just FYI, I haven't heard from an appraiser yet. Okay. So just, again, being a partner. Okay. And monitoring the appraisal objection and the resolution. If it comes in at value with no conditions, it's easy. ILCs and surveys, buyer's agents. So as a listing agent, I never care about these at all unless it shows up in the title work that an ILC is required, which it can't sometimes will do. If my buyer wants an ILC, then again, I will tell them, here's a couple of companies you can call, or I can call one on your behalf. You're going to want to do that early in the process because ILCs, if you're up in the mountains, you're talking 4 to 5 weeks. If you're down here in the city, you could be pushing 3 weeks. So you want to make sure if your client wants one, that you get that ordered earlier than later. Don't wait till the day before the ILC deadline to go, oh yeah, I guess we should get one. You're going to cause delays in the contract. Okay. Water rights and mineral rights. Here's what I'm going to say. If you have a property that these are coming with, talk to Margaret, talk to Bob, talk to Kevin. I'm not going to go over that today. You got the home inspection ordered. You're the buyer's agent. You need to go to the inspection. Right? We don't want unlicensed people running around houses by themselves. And you need to hear what the inspectors are telling your clients. And there's many reasons. One, I want you there because somebody needs to have a license to secure the property. Right? You don't want to be the agent who sends the inspector in and then you find out later that they didn't lock the door when they left and somebody broke in. Right? That's not what our jobs are about. We want to protect those clients' homes, right? The other reasons to be at the inspection, if the inspector finds something, and by the way, we are not experts in construction. Are any of you construction people? I don't think so. Okay, so we all know enough to be dangerous. And sometimes we don't even know what we don't know. But what we are good as agents is doing one thing, and that's asking questions. So if you have an inspector who's explaining something to your buyer, and you know your clients well enough, can you guys always tell when somebody like doesn't really understand what's being to explain to them, but they don't know what to ask or they don't want to ask in fear of looking stupid? You guys all recognize those faces in people?
Yes.
Easy, right? You can always tell, like they have this weird look on their face. Be the person that asks the questions for them. Jeff, Nikki, how many times have you ever been in a classroom with me when Kevin is teaching and I'll ask a question about a contract? You ever seen me do that?
Quite a bit.
Do you think it's because I don't know?
No, you want to pull a point out normally.
It's usually because I know you all didn't understand what he just said. And it was either because you didn't know to not understand, or you didn't even know how to explain that you didn't understand. And so when it's the same thing with an inspector, right? If you're with and again, as you guys gain more and more experience, for those of you that have owned your own homes, you're going to always evolve in this. But if here's the thing, if the inspector is explaining something and I don't understand it, I have no problem looking stupid. And I will just literally say, I don't understand. My favorite one is, what you just said sounded like you were speaking a foreign language. Can you help me understand it better? I have no problem saying that to people, right? Because not only is it benefiting me, but it's benefiting who?
The client.
My client, right? And at the end of the day, I don't care if the inspector thinks I'm stupid. Now, my friend Charlie, who's an inspector, has no problem telling me when I am, but that's a different story. But, and he does not do my inspections because we're too close of friends. I don't want to have a violation. So, but I have no problem with Charlie telling me I'm stupid because I'm eventually going to learn something, right? So ask those questions when you're out there. The other thing is that you're also going to be able to hear things that your client should be concerned about that they may think they don't need to be. Right? We're talking a little bit about Lisbeth's situation, right? And, you know, they're very likely, had I been out at that inspection with her and her husband, there might have been things in there that I heard that maybe they should have been concerned about. right? Now they had a pretty good list. They got through it pretty well and they had a good inspector, right? But sometimes, you know, the inspector will say something about, oh, I don't know, pick the sewer line. It's my favorite thing to pick on, right? They'll say something about the sewer line and the buyer either isn't paying attention or doesn't care. Or they're so distracted with measuring for furniture. Yes, it happens. That when we get down to writing that objection, that I'll say, okay, Mr. Buyer, and this is how I do it. So Jeff, we were at the inspection together. We went through the summary with it. You've had a chance to kind of process everything you heard and saw that today. What are the things that you're most concerned about? Remember, we're going to focus on health and safety items. What are the things that you're most concerned about? What did you hear that we want to make sure we have the seller address? And he's going to give me his opinion, whatever it is. And I would say, so Jeff, remember when he was talking about the sewer line? Like, is that something like, did you hear that differently than I did? Or is that something else we could bring in? And he'll go, oh my God, yes. The missus was so worried about would the bed fit in the bedroom. I wasn't totally hearing what that guy was saying. Yes, Margaret, put that sewer thing in there, right? On the same token, when Jeff says, well, I'd really like to have him caulk the bathtub, I'm going to say, Jeff, you can do that yourself for $1.99. Go buy the caulk at Home Depot. Now, Nikki's laughing because she's heard this story 100 times, and I think she might have had someone do it too. I had the seller. Buyer gives us an inspection report. It was pretty reasonable until he got to the last line. Licensed plumber to recaulk the bathtub as the caulking appears to be old, and if it cracks, moisture could get behind it and create mold. Now, my client was a city manager and is a city manager today. He's worked a lot of construction. He and his wife rehab homes all over town. They were living in Pagosa Springs at the time. Condos here in Denver. And his answer to that was, Margaret, if you think I'm paying a plumber $100 to come out and caulk a bathtub that I could do myself for $1.99, he is crazy. And no, I am not driving from Pagosa Springs to do this. They're trying to take advantage of it. What happened is he got mad because they went too far. I called the buyer's agent. I said, Jeff, overall, this inspection report wasn't too bad, but here's what my seller's willing to do. And I was really shocked about this bathtub thing. Yeah, well, they were pretty passionate about it. I said, well, it needs to go away. So then they came back with some other really stupid thing in lieu of it. And so they made my client so mad. He only agreed to do one thing on their inspection report where he would have done everything else had they not put the bathtub on. So over $1.99 tube of caulk, it probably cost that buyer $1,000 in repairs that we refused to do. And the seller said, look, I had 2 other offers, and Margaret, I'm pretty sure that none of them have found a house yet, because it was back when like everybody was getting 20, 30, 40 offers, right? But tell that story, right, Jeff? You know, let me tell you what happens. We want to be smart about this. I don't recommend asking for the caulking on the tub. Right? So be aware, right? Counsel your people, right? Use these stories. How many of you are going, this is crazy. This never really happens. And I'm telling you, every one of these things happened. Okay. All right. Get your inspection objections to the listing agents as fast as possible. Just because the deadline is next week doesn't mean you sit on it. It also means you don't fire drill your coaches at midnight to look at it. Yeah, you all laugh. You all laugh. All right. Questions on inspection or ILCs? Okay. Due diligence documents. Well, actually, property insurance termination. I don't worry about this as a listing agent. On the buyer side, I just check in with my client to make sure they've got it taken care of. When they're getting a loan, the lender needs the final quote from the insurance company so that they can put that into the numbers. The client does not have to pay for the property insurance before closing. Due diligence documents. In a contracts class, you're going to hear me talk about or Kevin or Bob. Ask for documents that are property specific. Don't just ask for the world. Right? And honestly, I gotta tell you right now, is when I've been writing offers for my buyers, I don't even ask for them anymore. Because there's usually, unless this document is going to stop you from buying the house, why is it relevant? Like, let me ask you a question. If someone doesn't give you the manual to the refrigerator, are you going to terminate the contract?
No.
Then why are you asking for it? See what I'm saying? Right? There are certain documents that are going to be important. Ask for them. If that house was recently flipped, I'm absolutely asking the flipper for the permits and the warranties. Right? If it's got a solar system on it, I'm going to ask for information about the solar system because that I definitely want to know about. Right? If there was foundation work done, like the house that Elizabeth just can't terminate it. Let's pretend that that seller actually had done structural work to repair it prior to going on the market. I probably want to see that information in that warranty, right? That could be a deal breaker for me. Getting the refrigerator manual, I don't care. I don't care about the home inspection that they did 7 years ago when they bought the house. It's not relevant today. And yet agents ask for that stuff all the time. So what I'm going to tell you with due diligence is, if you're going to ask for it, make sure it's relevant. Because you're more likely to get it. Okay? If I'm on the seller side, I'm going to ask my client for it right away. And I'm going to get it to the buyer's agent. I'm either going to leave it on the kitchen counter for inspection, which means I need to have it in the house prior to inspection and let the buyer's agents know due diligence documents are on the counter table, on the kitchen counter. They're there for your review. Please do not remove anything until after closing. Or I'll scan them and I'll just email them to them. Both work. Okay. Then you've got your closing date, your possession date, and away we go. Woo. So you're the buyer's agent. You're through inspection. Woo-hoo. Once I'm through inspection as a buyer's agent, then my work just got a whole lot easier. Like your first 10 days, 14 days that you're under contract are the hardest. It's when you're going to do the most work as a buyer's agent. Minute I'm through inspection is when I start scheduling pre-close walkthroughs and I schedule my closing. Even though we're not fully clear to close, I'm going to get on the calendar of the title company. A lot of buyers and sellers now close separately. I still enjoy a good old-fashioned closing where both parties are there. It's really a lot of fun. Okay, but get it scheduled. Also, the other thing is if you have a client, whether you're the buyer or the seller, and one of them is, and they're not going to be here, like right now, of my 3 deals that I have under contract, 2 of my sellers are out of state. If you have an out-of-state client, you need to work with the title company to arrange for them to be able to close the paperwork. And depending on the title company that you work, they have different methods of doing that. Andrea talked about this at Team Rally earlier this week. Land Title can do an online notary system now. It's like $50. A notary comes on the Zoom, just like all of us are here today, and they verify it's your client and they electronically sign everything. One of my sellers is doing their closing the end of the month that way. My other seller is not as tech savvy. He's the sweetest 86-year-old guy you'll ever meet. Those of you that were at the golf tournament probably met him. But anyway, he's like, Margaret, you need to send, somebody needs to come out. So they will send a remote closer with all the paperwork out to his house and sign him just as if he was in the closing room with ink and pen. Costs a little more money depending on where they are. But if you got a remote client, you got to plan for that. Okay. If you have a client, if you're a seller and it's an estate, you need to check with your title company what kind of paperwork you need in advance. You might need a death certificate, but if it's true estate, you probably need a personal representative's deed. So your seller, the executor of the estate, has got to get with the attorney and make sure that they get that personal representative's deed and they bring that to the closing table. The title company doesn't create it. So always be looking for those things. As a buyer's agent, always, 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 always a pre-close walkthrough. Always. Did you hear me? Always.
Yes.
Even builders do pre-close walkthrough, right? Anybody, new construction, what do you do on closing day? First thing you do the final walkthrough with the buyer and the rep from the builder. Then you all go have lunch, and then you all show up at the closing table. How it always goes. If you have a new construction closing, I promise you it's an all-day event. Okay, do those pre-close walkthroughs. Let me tell you a couple stories. By the way, one of these isn't mine, but I love the story so much, and Debbie DeWitt told me I could tell it. Debbie DeWitt had a buyer. In the contract, it said the seller was keeping the refrigerator. Some of you have heard this story because I can tell by your face you're already smiling. Okay. They go to the pre-close walkthrough. They walk into the kitchen. There's no refrigerator. That's fine. That's what they expected in the contract. What they didn't expect was the big hole in the wall behind the refrigerator that led directly to the garage.
Oh, yeah.
Debbie calls listing agent. Listing agent says, well, remember, Debbie, yeah, remember the contract was excluded. She goes, oh, I remember the refrigerator's excluded, but I'm a little concerned about this hole in the wall behind it. And in the listing agent says, but that's where the refrigerator goes. And she says, no. There is a hole. I can see the garage from inside the kitchen. Like if I parked my car in the garage, I could see my car. This is a problem. She goes, and I can't just block it with the refrigerator because gases and fumes come in from garages and things with more than 2 legs or things that slither. Right? And Debbie doesn't like any of those things, as none of us do in our house. Okay. So they found out what happened. The seller was a craftsman and he made handmade canoes. And she said, oh, I do remember that beautiful canoe down in the basement. Well, they went to get the canoe out, and because of the way of the property set up, they couldn't bring the canoe up the stairs and turn it to get it out. So what they did is they cut a hole in the wall that went direct into the garage. So they brought the canoe up and straight out into the garage. Yeah, pretty easy to solve for prior to closing, right? Anybody want to be the buyer's agent when the buyer walks in after closing and get a phone call like that?
No.
It's funny, all my stories about this have Debbie in them. So Debbie asked me to help a buyer when she had some stuff going on. And that's one of the things we do, right? Is that, you know, sometimes our schedules don't work. And Debbie had some stuff going on, and she goes, is there any way you can go to this closing and pre-close walkthrough for one of my clients? And I said, of course, we do it all the time for each other. So I'm driving out to the property, and Debbie calls me. And she says, I just got a phone call from the listing agent. And when they were moving the washer and dryer, they're saying that they found a slight water leak behind the washer, but they're going to get it fixed. But can you just take a little extra care on that? I said, sure. So the buyers and I get to the property, and we aren't even to the end of the driveway. Like we haven't even gotten up to the driveway to walk up. And the sellers both come running at us. And they're like, okay, we found this water leak and we're going to take care of it. And we're figuring it out. And we got people we've called and blah, blah. And they're just, yeah. I'm like, no worries. We'll figure it out. And I'm thinking a little water leak, right? I'm thinking I'm going to find some water, you know, a couple of drips on the floor, and, you know, a plumber's on his way out and he's going to fix it, right? So I walk into this laundry room and the floor does this. Floors aren't supposed to move, are they? And the closer I got to where the washing machine was, the more it moved. And then I looked at the drywall behind the washing machine. There was there was evidence of water. And when I touched it, it was very, very wet. So this wasn't a new little water leak. And the sellers are kind of standing there watching me. And I said, well, we're just going to take a look around the rest of the house and, you know, go ahead and keep moving. Like you're supposed to already be out of the house and you're still here. So we did look at the rest of the house, and so the buyers and I went out and got very far away because the sellers were very much interested in what we were going to talk about. So I literally put them in my car. And I said, you guys have a choice. You can close, or we cannot go to closing until they get this mess fixed. And I said, if it were me, I would not go to closing, because this is not going to get fixed in the next hour. Took a week and we got closed. However, had we not been coming to the house, how easy would it have been for that seller not to call their listing agent? Had they not called the listing agent, do you think I would have found it? It was very apparent. Right, it was very obvious, right? So that's why you go, because sometimes things happen and you want to make sure they get fixed before you close. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Now make sure the house is in the same condition. 90% of the time, everything's fine. 95% of the time, everything's fine. It's the 5% that'll get you. Okay. Closing. Before you go to closing, make sure that you order, regardless of which side of the fence you're on. Make sure that you, how do I say it? Make sure you get a copy of the settlement statement. Do the math on it. If you're on the buyer's side, that seller concession that the seller was going to give you, does it show on the settlement statement? Is it all there? Did they prorate for everything? Some people actually do the math. Yeah, not me. Although those of you that think I'm a C, think I probably do. I don't do the math on the settlement statements. Right? I let other people do the math. Okay. But I look to make sure it makes sense. Does it align with what we said in the contract? If you're the listing agent, make sure that everything's on there, including the buyer broker's commission, if it's being paid by the seller out of proceeds. Make sure the home warranties are covered. Make sure any repairs that the seller's paying for out of closing, that the invoices have been turned into the title company. That's another thing, listing agents. If your seller had work done and they're paying for the vendor out of closing proceeds, make sure you get those bills to the title company to pay prior to closing. So that's why you want to look at the settlement statements. I try and get them 3 or 4 days before closing if I can, because that way if something's missing, one, it's not a fire drill for me to review it. And second of all, it's also an opportunity if something's not right to get it fixed. True story, we had a couple of agents. There was a huge miscommunication between the listing agent and the transaction coordinator and the title company. And as a result of this, the title company now asks the questions differently and the TC knows how to answer it better. It was one of those situations where every party had played a role in the miscommunication, and all 3 of them had to do it wrong, and they did. And the result was the buyer's agent didn't get paid. So the seller got 2.8% more proceeds than they were supposed to. Anybody see a problem with that?
Yes.
Yes, but guess when it got discovered? This is the crazy part. A week after closing. When the MCA of the brokerage that the buyer's broker worked for asked the buyer's broker where their commission checks were. So this new buyer's agent didn't even realize she'd gotten paid, not got paid yet. She thought it was normal. Our listing agents had to go back to the seller and say, you were overpaid and you need to send the title company 2.8% of your sales proceeds. You know what the seller said? You ready for this one? Settlement statement said it was final. I signed it, you signed it. I think we're done. Now what happens?
What's the contract say?
Doesn't matter what the contract says. Well, the contract says that the buyer's broker is going to be paid by the listing brokerage firm. So now guess who pays that buyer's broker's commission?
No one.
The listing agent.
Oh.
Now, the happy end of the story is the seller ultimately did the right thing. However, it was a very sleepless 3-day weekend for the listing agent. Can you imagine being the listing agent? You got 3.2%, which covered your marketing expenses, and now you're going to have to pay almost 100% of it to the buyer's broker because you didn't check the settlement statement to make sure they got paid correctly. Anybody want that to happen?
No.
By the way, it would have cost them money out of their pocket because the brokerage still got their company dollar. So you would have paid the buyer's broker firm more than your actual net paycheck. Anybody now going to check settlement statements every time now as a listing agent?
Yes.
Right? I mean, you guys, I don't tell you this guy, and I love the smiles and I love all of this, but I'm telling you this because I don't want it to be you, because it could so easily happen because there's so much coming at you all the time. By the way, so you're all in our coaching program. When you go to your very first closing, your coach, either myself or Corey, because some of you coach with Corey, we will go with you.
Thank
And
God.
we have so much fun. We love eating cookies with you. I remember eating cookies with Nikki at 9:20 in the morning. That was pre-COVID, before when they really actually had cookies at the table. We love going with you. Just do us a favor. Don't tell us the day before, because we might not make it, right? But we want to be there with you. We want to be there, A, to support you, and 2, to celebrate with you. Okay. All right. That was a fast 90 minutes. What are you thinking? How many of you wrote down notes? How many of you have writer's cramps from writing down all those notes? Okay. All right, so what'd you take away?
For me, I
Always
think,
inspect.
I'm sorry.
No,
Go ahead,
Elizabeth
go ahead.
goes first, and then we'll go to Vanjie.
Okay, so for me, like, I was so nervous, like when I first got in with the contract. So, like, hearing you now, because I had seen your other video from like almost the same as this, but still I felt like, okay, I need more. I need more information. I need more. So this is like, it's giving me more. So
Okay.
it's like I do feel a little better now that I've done it a little, and now that I've like heard more. So it's like feel a little better. I still need more. Like I feel like I feel like you just keep learning. So like, but this was really good.
Yeah. So for you, right? You've never bought a house,
No,
right? You've never helped a client buy a house.
no.
You are relatively active newly to the system. So you've not had the opportunity to go to a lot of trainings,
Mm,
right? And even the ones you have, maybe it was long enough ago that it didn't all resonate, right?
yeah,
Part of that is the learning, right?
yeah,
With the experience comes, like, you can sit in the classroom, but until you do it, it's
yeah,
different,
yeah.
right? I think a couple of you are in the dental fields, right?
Mm,
Right?
I
We can teach you and teach you and teach you and teach you. When you went to dental hygienist school, right? They taught you and taught you and taught you, but did you really know until you actually went in and cleaned somebody's teeth?
no. You
And
learn it.
usually it's another student's teeth, so it's safer that way. But right? I remember my daughter going to beauty school. Anybody ever gone to beauty school, right? I mean, you go to cosmetology school, right? Same thing, right? They can teach you all the theory, but until the first time you take that first snip, right? Or that first
Yep.
time you pull out the electric file on the nails, or the first time you put stuff on people's faces, right? First time you ripped wax off of somebody, right? Like all of those things, the first time is different than no matter how much you learn it in the book.
Right.
That's true in all of your jobs, right? So just, I want you to remember, just because you went and got the license doesn't mean you know all the practice. Give you guys, please do this. Give yourself some grace, right? How many of you, because you're all dual career, How many of you are that you have a high degree of confidence in whatever your job is, and you know that there are very few problems you can't solve because you know what you're doing? How many of you feel that way about your day job?
Me.
All of you, right? Okay,
Yeah.
go back to your first day at that job.
Mm.
First day. Did you feel that way on day 1?
No.
No,
Did you feel that way on day 30?
no.
No.
So why do you think you should in this world? Okay, that's why you have coaches. That's why you have managing brokers, right? That's why you have classes like this. That's why you have coaching, right? To be able to continually give you the practical experiences and that. You guys are all better today because you came here today. One of those stories, you will probably forget it until you're put in the position and you're going to go, oh my God, I remember that story Margaret told about the blah, 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 blah. Okay, so keep doing it. Keep asking the questions, right? Know you have the support. In addition to all of these classes, when you coach with Corey and I, when you get your first buyer, your first seller under contract, we have written, yes, we use command and it's a smart plan. I'm just going to be really honest. And it is set up that once we trigger it, you automatically get an email on a regular basis about where you are. Right? Please read those emails.
Mhm.
I remember asking a newer agent who struggled through their very first transaction. True story. I won't tell you who it is because that's not relative. But struggled through their entire conversation. They were just always behind. We were always firefighting. It was always hard. It was miserable for the client agent. It was miserable for the coaching staff. And I remember saying, did you read the emails that we sent? Like, were those helpful at all? And just, oh, I saw them, but I never opened them. Thanks for being honest. Right? And you had the tools, right? You had the support. Just so you also all know, we do Ask the Coach. Are you guys all aware about Ask the Coach?
No.
Ask the Coach is available Mondays through Fridays, except when Monday's a holiday, at from 8 to 8:30 and 2:30 to 3 every day. You will find one of us, someone from the coaching staff on that Zoom, and we're there to answer your questions. Okay. Now, we're going to be honest. If we sit there from 8 to 8:15 and nobody shows up, do you think we're sitting for the last 15 minutes?
No.
So try and get on there early, right? But we're there to answer your questions, right? So many of you are new. Some of you are going to go, you're going to be sitting around tomorrow and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't completely understand what Margaret was talking about when she was talking about blah, blah, blah. Well, just jump on Ask the Coach on Monday morning and ask me. Or ask Corey, whoever's on. Say, when I was on a class with Margaret, she was talking about this. I didn't completely understand it. What does that mean? Okay. We're here to help you guys through this process because we remember how scary it was when we did it.
Have a question. So
Yes,
where do
ma'am.
we find that Zoom link, like Monday through Friday? Is it in our
So
email?
that Zoom link can be found. There's a smart plan email that goes out at least every couple of weeks with the link in it. It can also be found. Elizabeth also sends out the link in her emails. It can also be found on the Productivity Coaching Facebook page up in the file section or the featured section. That link is saved up there as well. So
I don't think I have the productivity. I don't think I have the productivity Facebook page yet.
Okay, so you joined coaching what, yesterday?
Yeah, she's all, give it time, girl, give it time.
It's exactly what I'm going to tell you, right?
Okay.
So once you sign the commitment, then you're going to get a great big long email from Stacy, and included in that email is going to be the link to all the Facebook pages, the Ask the Coach link, the contract help email address, all of those things.
Okay, thank you.
So give us a couple of hours and we'll get you there.
All right, that's fine.
But that's a good question. You can find the Facebook group. You could join it now. It's K-Waves Productivity Coaching. Just ask to join and I'll probably approve it.
She said probably.
Just, as long as I recognize your name, I don't even look to see if the contract's signed. I just hit yes. So, anyway. All right. And so that was Liz. So Vanjie, you had another question though too, didn't you?
You were just asking like what did we take away, and I think what I took away was just always be proactive, think ahead, and just stay on top of your deadlines. I think that's what I think I
Yeah.
took the most away from was be proactive.
Mhm. And here's the thing, you guys are all dual career, right? You have
Yes.
multiple jobs, you got a lot of things going on. I'm gonna look at Nikki and I'm gonna look at Elizabeth. What is the number one piece of help that you had during your contracts, helping you keep track of things so that you didn't drop a ball?
TC.
Elizabeth?
Same.
Yeah.
Same, because I would forget and she will always send me a text. Hey, we have this with this for this day. So just you know, so it was like pretty helpful. It was
Yeah,
like
so exactly. So when we talk about TCs, they're transaction coordinators. And these are basically administrative staff. And their role is to help you, the agents, with the contract to close process. The TC's job is to make sure you get paid at the closing table. That's what we all want, right? But they help you manage the dates and deadlines. They manage a lot of the communication. They take care of uploading documents in command for compliance. They take care of, they'll schedule things for you. They're really like having a personal assistant on demand. Fees are very inexpensive in the big scheme of things. And when you are a brand new agent, having another set of eyes of somebody who's been doing this for several years is a helpful thing, even though they don't have a license or may not have a license. And when you're juggling a second career and having somebody give you a notice that says, hey, don't forget your inspection objections due today. You might have sent it off yesterday and went, got that one done. Or you might go, I know what I'm doing on my lunch hour today. Right? So we have two in the office. One of them is, I full disclosure, has the same last name I do because it's my daughter. Her name is Andy. She is not licensed and works for probably, I don't know, a large between the two of them, they cover most of the office. Handles a lot of the population, and that's her only job. She's a full-time TC. The other option in the office is Trevor Collett. Trevor is an agent in the office. He does have a license, and so that's another option. Trevor's been in the business for almost as long as I have, but like I said, he's a realtor. He's got several different jobs that he does, and one of them is TCing. So when you get to that point, I'm happy to refer you to one or both, so you can ask them about what their services are and decide what you want to do. So there's that. Whew. All right. Anything else?
I do have a question.
Okay.
So for the dates, like you know how you press the to put all the dates in there. Do we have to like put them like as we think it might be good, or like do we all have that option to like press that button in there?
Love it. It's almost like you came to this class for the other part. So first of all, this is a contract guide, and I will email this out to everybody that's here today. You can get these different title companies have different views of this. This is my favorite view because I think it's very succinct with how the contract really falls, and it's a little more specific. But it will tell you, 7 days, 10 days, 13 to 15 days, all of that. So you are all going to get this guide to be able to use. And just think, if you only had this, how easy would it be to push the buttons in the dates and deadlines contract, right? Like if we knew that the record title objection was due on if we knew the conditional sale deadline was a certain date, I can look on my chart and go, okay, 14 days from today, but it's got to be a business day. So let's make it October 2nd, right? Like super easy, right? Just by having this, right? So But Elizabeth, she was paying attention. She might have been somebody who recently had to do this. And she saw me push a button and all these dates magically appeared, right?
Can I offer a word of advice regarding
Yes.
the templates? The templates are very nice, but you also want to make sure you're not falling on a federal holiday
Mhm.
because the banks aren't open and for whatever reason, closing day is what I'm talking. Closing. You want to make sure that you're not falling on a holiday as well as any of the other dates.
Exactly. It's not perfect. You still have to apply your brain, right? Like if I was going to do this one, I might go, no, no, this isn't going to work because of blah, right? And you're right. I don't ever want to see dates and deadlines falling on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a holiday. So you do need to know what your holidays are. And I'm usually pretty good at them. And this year there was a new holiday. I didn't even know about it. And I had been writing a ton of contracts about 3 weeks earlier than that day. For 2 and 3 weeks, I was helping people write contracts. Well, the first 2 and 3 weeks of the contract, I mean, how many deadlines are due in the first 2 weeks? A lot. And I had a ton of that Monday holiday. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't Juneteenth. I don't remember what holiday it was. What's the new holiday this year? Do you guys know? Boy, did it
I
catch
don't.
me off guard. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, thank God I didn't have any. We did have to do some amends for some closing dates because it was one of those holidays none of us knew about. So you're right. Pay attention to these, right? So how do you create this? So most of you don't have CTM. So I wasn't sure if we even wanted to go down this path, but I'm going to show it to you. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new template and it's going to be called test 9/16/23 class because I don't need any more in my real stuff. Okay. So I'm going to create a template. So I'm not going to have a contract date. Well, you have to have a contract. No, I don't. I'm going to clear the contract date. I'm going to clear the closing date. Okay. So time of day deadline. Now, again, you're going to dive deeper into this in a contract to buy and sell class. So I'm going to stop myself from teaching contracts. Time of day deadline, that was important. In the contract, what does what time does the business day end if you leave this blank?
Five?
11:59, right?
11:59 p.m. Who wants to negotiate contracts at 11:30 at night? So you can now put a time of day deadline in here. Here's what I'm going to tell you, especially you guys. Don't make it 5 p.m. First of all, as realtors, even if you're a full-time realtor, we do work into the evenings. As a matter of fact, I remember asking Elizabeth last night that question as we were getting ready to terminate and we knew we were tight on deadlines. I asked her, what's your end of day deadline? And it was 9 p.m. Wasn't it? Or was it 8 p.m.?
8.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to Corey about that. 8 p.m., right? Well, we were doing this at 7:25. She had to get her termination and earnest money released to the listing agent by 8 p.m. or she was going to be in default. So if you're going to do something beyond 11:59 p.m., different than that, make sure it's not super early in the day either, because your reality as dual career agents is you are going to be doing a lot of this in the evenings. Now, as dual career agents, if it were my brain, if it's possible, and my inspection objection is due on Wednesday, I'm going to get it done on Tuesday. Right? I'm going to try and be ahead of the curves as much as I can so that I'm not feeling that stress and craziness, right? Because you guys are busy, your coaches are busy. Believe it or not, we really don't sit by our phone 24/7, although sometimes you may think we do. right? We're very available and yet. Okay, we're on a plane, we're traveling with our kids, we're at our football games, we're driving in the mountains from a conference and coverage is horrible. I don't remember how many times I had to call poor Elizabeth back yesterday because I kept dropping her, right? So try to plan ahead. So I wouldn't do this before 9 o'clock at night if it were me. That's a little more reasonable, right? If you're in the middle of a negotiation and everybody's on board, hopefully you can have it wrapped up by 9. And then what you do is when you're building the template, and I don't know how to split my screen. Let me see if I can do this. Let me see how I can do this. There it is. Let's do this. Oh, I will put that over there. Although I might regret that. Let's move this here. You guys are all going, what is she doing? Why won't this move? Okay, can you all see that entire cheat sheet on the right? Can you see the guide? Oh, not anymore. Now can you see the guide?
Not all of it.
Can you see the name and the dates, the ranges? So if I asked you, what's the record title deadline range? Can someone tell me what it is?
7 days.
There we go. Okay. I'm feeling good. Now I have to find, where did that little thing go? Okay, and then you can see my template on the left, right?
Yes.
I've never done a split screen with you guys, so it's a little tricky. All right, so alternative earnest money, what's our range?
1 to 3 days.
From what? Contract, closing, MEC, or clear?
Let me see.
Now it says MEC, what it really means is the
Yes, it
contract
is.
date.
Oh,
Okay. If you type if you click the MEC, it's going to literally write 3 days from MEC. So you want to use the contract, and we're going to do 3 days. Okay. Then what's our record title deadline?
7 days.
From the contract, right?
Yep.
And then our record objection is going to be 10.
10 days.
And our off record is going to be 7. And our off record objection is going to be 10. And our title resolution is 15. Okay. Seeing how I'm doing that?
Yes.
Once I'm done, I hit save and display. And now I'm going to close this. So now watch what happens. I'm going to go into auto dated deadlines, and I'm going to pick this up and go, oh, look, here's this. That's the one I want to use. I'm going to save and insert it. And look, it put our dates on. So when you go through the template, you mirror it up to this document. And that's literally, that's how I build my template. Okay. So you can build yourself a 30-day template, a 45-day template, a 60-day template. Honestly, I do a 30-day template. And then, as Nikki said, you can't always trust that it's going to be 100% accurate. Right? Because it is going to, like, it'll get weird sometimes if you're based on the date you're writing it. And I actually teach a full class on that I'll also teach you some hacks. But today, there's only like 3 of you that have CTM, so I'm not even going to go into that and bore the rest of you because you'll forget it by the time you go to do it. But I will get you that guide, because that guide, if nothing else, will help you manually put the dates in. And I would encourage you on your first contract or 2, manually do the dates so you understand them. Right?
I do have a question about the dates.
Sure.
When there are those date ranges where it said like 5 or 7 to 10, do we always go on the high end to give ourselves more time, or how should those be taken into account?
Honestly, I do it the opposite. I go short. And in my contracts class, I actually teach some different ways to look at it when it gets to the appraisals and the loan dates, but that guide will serve you well and get you very few corrections from the coaches who review your contracts. I think it's really fun for some of the agents who've been around for a while. I've got one who, like, every time she sends a contract in for review, she feels like it's a win if I don't give her a date correction. So awesome. All right. What other questions do you have? I think Lala is on her way to an open house.
Cool. Good luck.
I think she might be going to an open house on Ohio.
That's right. Yes, I'm on my way. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, that listing agent on Ohio, you got to look out for her.
Oh, yeah? Sorry, I've been muting myself because I was cleaning, washing dishes. I didn't want you guys hear, but I hear everything. This was a great Zoom.
Good. I love it. Well, that's what we try and do on Saturdays, is bring you really good, meaningful training. Which is the other reason why we've started the Monday night coaching program. So we can coach on Monday and train on Saturdays. So just trying to bring you guys as much as we possibly can and get you out of the cosmetology, dental, warehousing works that you guys all do. So getting you to be full-time real estate agents, which is really just the best job in the whole world.
Have a good day, you guys. That's my partner calling me.
All right, go get me a buyer, Lala. All right, we'll talk to you later. So anyway, you guys have a great week. Know that we're here and available. Go out and make as many new friends as you can. I was up at the Rocky Mountain Summit for the last 2 days with some of the top performers. They spent a lot of time on mindset. We got to hear from some amazing coaches, and it was interesting. I thought I was almost at a coaching conference versus a real estate sales conference in many ways. But the number one thing I heard was just lean in to your friends and your family and all of those people who already know, love, and trust you. In this month's skills lab, which our skills labs are Wednesdays from 12:30 to 2:30 in the Market Center in Old Town. If you're able to join, and I don't know, I know some of you have flex schedules. So if you're able to join, great. If not, we do have the links, and we are actually creating a YouTube channel just for you guys where you can find all of these great classes. And as a matter of fact, this is one I'm going to tell Stacy, make sure we grab it because we knocked it out of the park this morning. At least I hope I did. Did we knock this one out of the park?
You did.
For sure.
For sure. Okay.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually going to ask, because I was looking for some of the videos specifically for this and I didn't find very many. So
yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot.
If you can give me, first of all, if there's a certain one you want the link to, email Stacy and she can send you the link. But my goal is that we will have the YouTube channel up and you'll all know exactly where it is by October 1st. Is that fair? Yes. But we have them now, right? We have them now if you need them. On Wednesday, 12:30 to 2:30, I am bringing in a MAPS business coach. Because you guys hear from me all the time. You don't need to listen to my voice all the time. And this MAPS business coach is One Thing certified. Have any of you read the book, The One Thing yet by Gary Keller? Okay, highly recommended if you haven't read it. It is not a real estate book. It is a life book. Would you agree, Jeff? Yeah, it's very much a life book. As a matter of fact, some of the executives that I used to work with at CenturyLink, I have literally sent them the book and said, you guys need to use this in your business because those people are all over the board. Anyway, trust me, they are. Our MAPS coach is going to come in and teach a section out of the One Thing about how to properly allocate our time to get everything done. How many of you guys struggle with the clock? How many of you guys struggle with getting the to-do list done? How many of you guys struggle as dual career agents